With crises, generally, you work very hard for no one to know about it. But in this case, we lent into it and turned the crisis or the issue into sort of a brand opportunity with influence at its absolute heart. And it's been completely flipped on its head, where earned is driving campaigns and reputation, which is Burson's whole proposition and our point of view. It's not earned. It's you're not paid. You can't pay for it. You have to earn it. And influence is a huge part of that. A huge part of that. And when we chat about the KitKat campaign, that's a great example of an influence-first, content-led campaign that travelled because of the power of influence.
I find it so important to be able to bring CFOs along the journey, to invest into the things that build influence, that grow communities.
It was really interesting, them talking about the importance of the relationship with the CEO, but more importantly, or not more importantly, as importantly, the relationship with the CFO. And I think research like this, data, Burson's a very, very data-driven agency, and we're very proud of the tools that we've built. Allows you to sit side by side and have those conversations talking about the value of what we do.
We were looking at, how do we measure influence? What is brand value? Forecast of all future sales. Then we sort of understood that from our data we can see that people are actually predictable. So with that we asked, if you could understand people's actions today, is there a mathematical framework? Is there a physics model that you can use to then be able to predict all future actions in the future? And
That'd be game-changing, wouldn't it?
Well, it exists.
Wow. Okay, let's talk.
Hello. We're here with Matt Buchanan, Global Chief Influence and Social Officer at Burson, on the ThisThat podcast. This year's theme is Making Influence Investable, and today we're asking what reputation is worth in the age of AI. Burson has done something the whole industry has been trying to do for decades: put a dollar value on reputation. And reputation is built the way influence is built, through ideas that start in culture, travel through communities, and earn belief across platforms. So today I want to explore what reputation is worth, how you build it, and how that connects to making influence investable. Matt, Burson's first global Chief Influence and Social Officer, a newly created role on the global leadership team. Burson's created it to put influence and social at the center of how reputation gets built. What your CEO called a genuine inflection point. Before Burson, 6 years at Ogilvy as Global and EMEA President of PR, leading Coca-Cola, L'Oreal, Google, and TJX Europe. You are a recognized industry leader, regular awards judge, and you've been a juror for the Cannes PR Lion. You've just been handed a blank canvas to build Burson's influence and social capability worldwide. Nobody is better placed to talk about where reputation is heading.
Thank you. Wow, what a great introduction. I appreciate it. No, it is an amazing opportunity, and I'm super, super grateful. Corey and our leadership team, I think it's like you said, I think it's a absolute sort of moment for Burson to be putting someone in this role on our global leadership team. It shows how important we're taking influence and social, and I think how our clients are valuing it. It's a real moment in time for us. It's not new to us, I should say. We've been doing influence and social very, very well. We've got about 250, 300 people globally doing the work in that space. But I think we are wanting to invest and really sort of turbocharge our offer. So I'm very, very, very grateful.
I'm very excited to have you on board.
Thank you.
We've got 4 parts.
Yeah.
We'll be going into your ambitions for Burson. We're going into the KitKat Heist, where we've
just won last night the Grand Prix in crisis communications for the PR Lions. And as a result of that, we also were named the PR Agency of the Year, we're very, very thank you. So you're very lucky. I was out late last night, but I went home knowing I was seeing you this morning.
Wow, wonderful. I feel lucky. We'll also go through reputation as a $7 trillion asset.
Yep.
And then making influence investable.
Yep.
We also have a rapid fire this or that questions at the end, all building on what reputation is worth and how to make influence investable.
Totally.
Starting off with your ambitions for Burson. So you've taken on this brand new role to build Burson's influence and social capability globally. You've called it a social-first creative muscle in service of reputation.
Yeah.
What's the ambition, and what does building it look like?
Yeah, it's a great question. The ambition is simple, I think, which is to make sure, we really believe that influence and social, but influence particularly, can have an impact on a brand's reputation significantly. And I suppose my ambition, having done a similar role at Ogilvy and understanding what great looks like, because they are outstanding at it, is to scale, I suppose, and to make sure that influence is not simply a channel, but a true strategic offer within the business and for our clients and our client partners. I think that's really, really important, because I think a lot of agencies particularly almost see influence or influencers as a almost activation channel. And I think what we're trying to do, and we're doing successfully with some key clients, particularly given our amazing data credentials at Burson, is to really look at influence in its totality. We call it total influence. That's our ambition, that's our point of view, which is looking at influence beyond simply consumer content creators and looking at influence and influencers as everyone from employees, MPs, government, NGOs, and consumer influencers, and media as influencers as well. So sort of influence in its totality, which is the phrase which we're using is total influence, which again, which I talked about yesterday on a panel at the Palais, and seems to be resonating really well with the industry and our clients as well.
Resonates deeply with me. There's an article that McKinsey wrote called A Better Way to Build Brands. And it speaks of marketing through 3 different eras. I read this in 2022, I think it was, and it's been something that's like on my mind ever since. So they say 1920s you had the mass media era. It's all about reach. Think of a speakerphone to reach as many people. You've got billboard, TV, radio, it's the new big things. Going into the 1990s, you now have internet, and you can send a specific ad to a specific person. This is entering into the personalization era, where effectiveness becomes a real, true priority. And so reach is still important, doesn't necessarily drop, but effectiveness becomes a new currency. And then it makes the case to say that going into 2020, so 2023 and beyond, effectiveness, whilst great, advertising is losing control of brands, and communities are gaining control of brands. And you can have an effective ad, but the ripple effect is having more of an impact.
I agree, 100%. And I think I talked about this yesterday at the Palais, which is, the old peso where paid led and earned followed. And as a PR person, which is what I've done my whole career and worked in PR agencies, you were always called at the 11th hour, and the brief was often make our ad famous. That was the subtext almost. And it's been completely flipped on its head, where earned is driving campaigns and reputation, which is Burson's whole proposition and our point of view. It's not earned. It's you're not paid. You can't pay for it. You have to earn it. And influence is a huge part of that. A huge part of that. And when we chat about the KitKat campaign, that's a great example of an influence-first, content-led campaign that traveled because of the power of influence.
Corey said that nearly 40% of adults under 30 are getting their news from influencers. How did that change how reputation gets built?
I think it's an opportunity. I think it's a huge opportunity. Again, it comes back to our point of view about total influence, which is, media, influencers are now media channels and carriers of news. And we need to be treating them in a very similar way that we would treat journalists at an agency like Burson. That's why I'm a true believer that PR agencies are very well placed to lead on influence, because we understand risk, which is a huge thing. The risk attached to influence is significant. A lot of clients need that comfort around agencies that understand risk and reputation. But we also understand how to talk to journalists. We also know how to build stories, because it's what we do. PR agencies have done for decades, like Burson. So I think it's a really interesting start, and something that we absolutely look at, in terms of how we can be using influencers to carry our clients' news, potentially before we even speak to journalists to carry the same news.
Also managing crises.
Yeah, absolutely. Exactly, which is the perfect KitKat example. Absolutely.
The Great KitKat Heist
Yes.
is a brilliant example of this.
Great, it is.
I'm going to hopefully get the stats right here.
Yes.
I saw 12 tons of chocolate stolen a week before Easter.
For Easter, yeah.
That is a crisis.
Something like 400,000 bars.
Wow.
Stolen between Italy and Poland. Somewhere between there.
Oh, God.
Crazy.
Instead of managing that quietly, you guys turned into a whole detective story.
Yeah, we did.
How did that idea start, and how do you manage crises like that?
So you know what? I think it's a really interesting campaign, and we're very proud of the work we did there with our partner VML, part of the WPP family. And I think it's a really good example of a brave client. The client, obviously, the client let us know that this had happened. We didn't, because that was news. That wasn't news that we would have got as consumers or as an agency. The client was brave, and we were with them last night, and they were very proud of the fact that they said, "Is there some?" It started like this. There was an email from the client that said, "Is there something in this?"
I love that.
To the agencies, and we were like, "Absolutely." And I think that's how it began, and that's a brave client to say that. And as a result of that, partnering with VML. So it's because I think so often with crises, with corporates, it's owned by Nestle. It's a very, very big global food entity. And with crises, generally, you work very hard for no one to know about it. But in this case, we lent into it and turned the crisis or the issue into sort of a brand opportunity with influence at its absolute heart. So yeah, it's a great example.
Could you walk me through, unpack, what are the phase that you go through? So you get that email.
Yeah.
What happens then?
So that's when, again, Burson alongside VML looked at what we could do, looked at I suppose, what KitKat's tone of voice would be when it comes to this. That's really, really important, I think. And the work you can see is a great example of, it's serious. They had chocolate bars stolen. It's a crime. But how do you add a spin to it that gives it a tonality, that gives it a sense of fun? And most importantly, I think what we did there, which is then why I think the campaign is so successful, is because there was a participation element to it, and that's how the campaign then traveled. Because the participation allowed consumers to get involved, and it kind of elongated the campaign because then you were able to get, and then as a result of the participation part of it, that's when all the influence, the content creators, the news media, sort of the news and the earned part of it fueled the participation element there as well. Because I think if there wasn't that participation element, it would have been a great story. We would have got great coverage. We would have got great social commentary, but I don't think it would have traveled as far as it did.
I read that you had 115 other brands jump in as
absolutely.
well.
Loads of brands wanted to get involved, so using it as an opportunity for them. That's a good example of culture hacking. We were brands jumping off the back of what KitKat was doing as well. So I think that's a great example of a great idea. It's a great compliment to Burson and to VML. That if other brands want to jump on the back of your campaign, how fantastic.
I'm a very big fan of participation.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'd love to give you a bit of context as to why. It's the, closing the loop on the 3 eras, the last one's the community era. And in that world, the currency is influence. And when I think about influence, I think there are three levels, you could put a hierarchy to it. The highest level of influence is your own experience. The lowest level of influence is advertising, and in between you've got communities. In other words, I will trust my own experience with a brand or product more than a friend's opinion, but I also trust a friend's opinion more than I would an ad. And more so with the proliferation of advertising, that control or the ability to influence people is shrinking in the advertising space and growing in the community space. But experience is still the most important.
Absolutely.
So how can you get involved in the experience as a marketer? It's very hard to. Product is where you'd have the most impact on that. But participation, that is an experience.
Yeah, it does. And I think the way I look at participation too is, and we do a lot of this when we're actually ideating within Burson with our amazing creative teams, is be really, really honest about my favorite question in those sorts of discussions is, yeah, but would you? Which is, you've got to look at it and say, but would you, because we're all consumers, so would you really?
Yeah.
Would you scan your KitKat and look at and put your barcode in? And we were like, you absolutely would. And that's the kind, because I think I talk about a lot with clients about a low barrier. It's got to have a low barrier to entry.
Yeah.
It has to be simple, and it has to be fun, and then there has to be that intrigue. And what we had there, the participation built the intrigue and then elongated the story.
Did you have anyone like scan and actually see this was stolen?
I'm not sure actually. Yeah, I don't.
Like, that hasn't happened.
I'll find out for you. I'll find out for you. Yeah.
One big cupboard
because people, I think what it is too. I think there's a whole, conspiracy theories and are huge, and people wanting to. I think people would die. Well, I know people were dying. For them to have a bar that was valuable, because you can imagine then that sort of putting it on eBay or sort of trying to show friends, and then that's the social virality as well. If you start say you had the bar that was stolen, but the barrier to entry was low. That for me is for participation, particularly when it comes to influence and social. It has to be simple, and a lot of the work I've seen this week, they are really clever, simple ideas. I think there's a tendency, all agencies, not just PR agencies, to overcomplicate things. And I love the simplicity of our KitKat concept.
Simplicity is core to everything.
So important.
Is that what they're saying? It's like, sorry, I didn't have enough time to make this shorter. That's so true. That rings a bell. And resonates with me deeply.
Because I think you can, when you get overexcited about something, there is a tendency to layer it and make it more complex. But you have to think like consumers or your cultural audiences, and think how they think, which is, I'll go get a bar and I'll scan it, or I've got it in my cupboard at home, and let's see if I've been part of this heist.
Ready for part 3?
Let's go for it.
Reputation is a $7 trillion asset. Burson just put a dollar value on reputation, a $7 trillion asset class. Your research found companies with a strong reputation can realize an extra 4.78% in unexpected shareholder returns above what standard financial metrics would predict. For decades, reputation was the thing that everyone knew mattered, but couldn't put a price on it. How did you finally put a number on it?
Great question. We're very proud of this piece of work. So Burson's, point of view, proposition is all around reputation, obviously. But I think it's interesting at the minute where, our chief communications officers are part of the C-suite, often alongside the CFO, but it's been very difficult for them to, sort of go head to head, I suppose, given the immeasurability of what we do at times. So Burson partnered with the University of Oxford to look at a load of different levers and metrics, and looking at lots of corporate organizations across the globe, to be able to really look at the relationship and the correlation between their stock price and their success financially, and the reputation levers that we pulled out as part of the research with Oxford. So a really in-depth piece of work, and it's kind of linked to our proprietary reputation capital tool, which we again work with many clients on many global brands, looking at the way in which people, and again the levers to a brand's reputation.
I find it so important to be able to bring CFOs along the journey.
Huge.
To invest into the things that build influence, that grow communities.
Agree. I was at a panel yesterday at Adweek. Craig, our CEO of our US business, was on the panel, and he was with a bunch of chief communications officers, P&G, Reddit, Shark Ninja, eBay, and it was really interesting, them talking about the importance of the relationship with the CEO, but more importantly, or not more importantly, as importantly, the relationship with the CFO. And I think research like this, data, Burson's a very, very data-driven agency, and we're very proud of the tools that we've built. Allows you to sit side by side and have those conversations, talking about the value of what we do. Because as a PR, I've been worked at PR agencies my entire career, 20 odd years, and in the early days, it was almost entirely immeasurable. And you were sitting there with media buyers, sitting there with marketeers who were able to say the impact their advertising has had. And it was a bit embarrassing as a PR person. And I think now, given the data, given tools like reputation capital, given the research, given the immediacy of influence data particularly, you're able to sit there and have really robust conversations and stand your ground and be proud of what you've achieved.
I think this is so meaningful to us. So ThisThat's mission is to prove and improve the power of influence.
Yep.
In other words, that is to make influence investable. And so very much looking to find dollar metrics that a CFO can understand, can scrutinize, can defend, it can back, and is happy to invest into. We had one of the partners from Boston Consulting Group on this week, and they also put some research into that, and not from reputation specifically, the different methodology, but just hearing the power of being able to take a CFO on a journey, and they need to see a dollar metric.
Yeah, they do.
And they explained it from the unlock to them was being able to show them a leading indicator of financial success that works both in the short term and the long term.
Yeah, it's also, I think, what's interesting about reputation capital and the reputation research we do with Oxford. One, the dollar value is very important, but two, the levers. It just allows a CEO or an influence leader or whoever to sort of look at what they're doing and change tact if necessary. Why are we low on that metric? How do we get higher on that? You know, real data that allows you to pivot as necessary, and sort of be the best brand or be the best organization you can possibly be. You know, that's what I love about having done this job for so many decades now. The data part of it now is so interesting to me because it's so real time. Whereas in the past, when I was doing this, say in the early 2000s or whatever, you had to wait weeks for any results to come through. And you couldn't, you know, we could be sitting here now, we could put something out, and then within 10 minutes we could be changing and pivoting based on the data that we're getting. Brilliant. And that's amazing. It's amazing. Makes me feel young.
What role does having data like this play in your ambitions with Burson?
Yeah, well, I think what the ambition for Burson, Burson is a really interesting business. Consumer PR and brand building is one part of what we do, but we've got a very, very big healthcare offer, B2B, corporate, public affairs, employee engagement, practices across the globe. And what this allows us to do is, particularly, I think, in influence. I think the opportunity in influence for Burson absolutely sits within consumer brand, but it also sits within healthcare. That is an amazing part of our business that is growing in the influence space. And reputation for healthcare companies is so important. Risk for healthcare companies is so important. They want to lean into influence in a significant way, but they need to do it in a compliant way. They need to do it in a way that doesn't affect their reputation. Many of them are publicly listed companies. So I think data like that helps us bring those healthcare, those corporate clients on that journey to give them the comfort, I suppose, that we've got this. You know, it's okay.
I think that they come like categories that have heavy compliance, like healthcare. I think it's actually quite fascinating. You touched at the beginning from the PR angle of knowing how to manage journalists.
100%.
And like now we've got 200 million influencers across the world. Lots of people can post content. You've got AI generated content now, making it easy for everyone to create content. You guys have managed it very, very well with KitKat.
Yeah, we have.
What is like a strategy that you guys use for heavily regulated spaces and managing the message and protecting reputation?
I think it's not just heavily regulated areas. I think healthcare, absolutely. We have a lot of data tools. We have very clever subject matter experts in healthcare. We have influence teams that are healthcare influence experts that understand the compliance piece. But I'd like to think that we bring that risk and reputation piece to anything we do, whether it's consumer brand. Whilst consumer businesses, we do work with Shark Ninja, we do work with Coca-Cola, we do work with Adidas. They're not highly regulated, but there's still risk attached to influence in those organizations. So I think it's really interesting. I think PR people, and I can say this as a PR professional my whole career, we're very good at looking at things through an opportunistic lens, but always with an eye on the risk or an eye on how could this blow up? How do we make sure that we are protecting our client's brand and their reputation?
That comes
at
from,
every
you said,
turn.
The undertone before was always, how can you make us famous?
Exactly, and that's a terrible place to start. Whereas our approach is, how can we make this travel?
Yes.
How can we make this the best possible piece of content, best possible campaign, KitKat Heist? But if you think about that piece of work, there was a whole, team working on the risk and reputation part with Nestle to make sure that we had that covered. So as the opportunity, the campaign could fly, because Nestle, Burson and the team, we've got this Nestle, we've managed the risk, and if something does blow up, we've got the following responses and we know what we're doing here.
Nice.
You've got to have that comfort level to allow you to be brave.
Okay, so that's being able to proactively predict different circumstances.
Yeah, definitely. And we've got lots of tools. We've got an amazing tool called Decipher, which looks at the likely believability and virality of campaigns and messages. So we use that a lot. We use that with KitKat. That's an amazing tool to allow us to really think, if we put this out into the world, this message, are people going to believe it? Is it authentic? And more importantly, is it going to travel?
You had a piece of work on the credibility paradox that I found fascinating. And inside that it says, visibility without believability is exposure without influence.
100%. And that's exactly what it is, which is, you can put a lot of stuff out into the world. Absolutely. Brands do it every day. We do it as consumers when we share stuff on our socials. But how much is it believed? So you want to, I think that's again why it's an amazing time to work in communications with tools like Decipher, that you can have that comfort level that we're going to put it out there. And we have a, never say never. You hope that it's going to travel, but it just gives you that comfort. Particularly, we work with big organizations, big global businesses that want that comfort that we've got this.
This week, a topic that's been around a lot was GEO.
Yeah.
That's something you guys have looked at as well. I wonder, is in an AI world, is believability the new currency of reputation?
Yeah, I think believability is a really, really important part of it. And I think it's a really challenging world, isn't it? Where you've got the rise of, I was saying yesterday on this panel that I was at, you've got the LLMs are the first and last sort of source of discovery. You've got people actually making up their own minds about a brand, about a business, about an individual, without even leaving their search window. And they're on platforms that our clients don't own. We can't see. We don't know how people are using them. So I think believability, my prediction here is, I think believability will rise again. The LLMs, we're all using them. I'm using WPP Open every single day. But I think over time, we'll continue to use them, but we'll want to also probably do a bit of our own, I would anyway, my own checking to make sure that I believe what I'm being served up. But the LLM piece is phenomenal. Like, it's changing the way in which we communicate. But the role of influence there is very, very important. The role of platforms like Reddit is so important now when it comes to, LLMs and surfacing, sort of discovery for consumers.
It was really interesting for me to see believability as a point of measure, because we've been measuring believability in our studies, and we measure a bunch of different things, but it really comes up as one of the core drivers of getting people to buy. The two biggest signals of action intent are believability and brand love.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what's interesting about believability, and we were just chatting about it earlier, you and I, weren't we, which is that in the early days of influence, you didn't sort of see through brand partnerships, and you didn't see through an influencer doing a brand deal as much as you do now. But consumers and advocates and media are much savvier, I think, to influencers partnering with brands and the authenticity piece, and people knowing that they're only potentially doing it because it's being paid for. So therefore, I think in our influence world, believability is a huge metric that we need to focus on. Absolutely.
It's true, actually. We speak of relevance as something that's important. If an ad is relevant to you, but you just don't believe in the person speaking to you, that can ruin it.
And 100%, and the link between believability and reputation. If you don't believe the brand, then clearly their reputation will suffer.
Okay, moving to part 4, making influence investable. you've put a dollar value on reputation, one of the most powerful assets a brand has. My view is that reputation is part of a bigger system, influence. If reputation alone is worth $7 trillion, imagine pricing the whole system that it sits within. How does that land with you?
I'd love that.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Earlier
Do it.
Yeah. Nice.
I think it'd be great. Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I'd love to maybe explain to you how I'm thinking
I'd
about
like
measuring
that.
influence. So, coming from the angle of trying to make influence investable, we're looking at how can you put a dollar value to this? And you'll be very familiar with earned.
Yep.
A metric, earned media value,
Yep.
has been very popularized.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Love it or hate it.
Yep.
Something that has done well has been simple.
Yeah. Absolutely.
It's easy to measure, ish.
Yep.
And lots of platforms have it. It's very accessible. You've got a dollar metric. It's comparable to different media channels. And so I'm thinking, how can we capture the simplicity of that, but actually make it something that's rigorous that CFOs will back?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Something that could be a part of the valuation of a company, perhaps even. And so we ask ourselves, what is brand value? What is influence? And what is a community? Because we believe in the community era, we want to speak to the community, we want to understand influence within that. And so brand value, when I'm thinking of the value of a company, really if you, like on top of assets that they might own, it's a forecast of all future sales. And so I detach assets and other things that the company might have and think that the brand value is really just a forecast of all future sales. So I sit with that and that makes sense to me, and then I go, now how do I forecast all future sales?
How do you?
Yeah. I think you can, well, the data that we have shows you can do a lot with just understanding how people move.
Yeah.
Influence is very predictable actually when you look at it from a human lens.
Yeah.
The IPA effectiveness came out last year saying that influencer marketing is the most effective channel, but it's the least predictable. And I found that an interesting claim. When I looked into that, it said that, now they're looking at it from influencer as a channel, not necessarily influence as a thing, and we've spoken about that as well. I see those very much as separate things. And they were looking, when they said it's not predictable, they were looking at influence as a channel across media metrics. And it's not predictable when you look at it like that. I can see that. What we've been doing, for the last 5 years at a large scale, we've got the largest brand of data set in influence marketing. We've been studying what makes someone consider. I spoke briefly about what makes someone take action. Believability and brand love. What makes someone consider is relevance. What makes someone advocate. It's all about brand love. And the 3 key drivers of brand love are curiosity, familiarity, and relevance. And so we've built up intelligence on what moves people through these different things. And inside that, last year we did a big report on 600 campaigns that we've been on, looked into that to try to ask, is influence predictable? And it turns out it very much is.
And maybe it's more predictable. I'm thinking about the changing nature of influence as a channel, and influence, like we were saying earlier, more broadly.
Yeah.
If brands are moving to longer term partnerships with influencers, because I think the part of how the industry is changing slightly is, out with our clients particularly, not this sort of spray and pray approach of one campaign, let's work with these influencers and never work with them again and move on to the next campaign. I think if we're building longer term partnerships with influencers and relationships like you would with journalists or NGOs, then perhaps that makes the predictability a little more robust.
Absolutely. The thing that throws it off is if you miss out on that, what we're seeing is if you have relevance, consideration moves up 3 times. So if you make sure that brand associations are aligned with category priorities,
100%.
which every influencer will have a different set of priorities with their communities. And that's why you've got this, don't give them a script, let them speak their own language, versus then trying to manage
control,
a story.
all that.
So we were looking at, how do we measure influence? What is brand value? Forecast of all future sales. Then we sort of understood that from our data we can see that people are actually predictable. So with that we asked, if you could understand people's actions today, is there a mathematical framework? Is there a physics model that you can use to then be able to predict all future actions in the future? And there's a
That'd be game changing, wouldn't it?
Well, it exists.
Wow. Okay, let's talk.
And so it's got its assumptions, it's got its limitations.
Of course. But the more it's a living and breathing piece of data.
Yes.
It'll get better and better over
and
time.
That's worthwhile like highlighting. So I'll circle back to that, the risk and limitation of it. But the main property it looks at is there's this Russian mathematician, maybe physicist. He came up with this thing called Markov chains, and you can use it to predict weather. So it is a model that looks at current states and good understanding as to how states can move between each other. And so translate that to, if we know that we've got this humidity, we've got clouds, we've got wind moving this way, I don't know anything else. I just know we've got this today, and I've got to know how like wind and humidity might move. Can I forecast tomorrow's weather? Can I forecast the weather in a week's time and beyond? And that's how Markov chains work. And so we try to understand how can we map our understanding of influence, how people move. And it's actually quite interesting. So two of the core signals, it's a bit more complicated than this, but let's try and keep it simple. NPS, the likelihood to recommend something.
Absolutely, it's a great measure.
And alignment together are very powerful. So NPS on its own isn't the most powerful correlated to things. It can be useful, but NPS and alignment together is a very strong signal. So if you have someone whose priority in market is the same as what they associate with your brand, and they are recommending you, so if they're aligned and recommending, they are champions. They are people that are going to spark that ripple effect. They will speak the language that you want to speak. On the flip side, if they have low NPS, they're not recommending and they're not aligned, those are opponents. They will be decaying your community.
Detractors.
Yes. And then in between, what's quite interesting is you could have someone with high NPS but misaligned. These are misfits. They confuse your message. They could actually have a negative impact. And
so the ability then is to map the influences based on where they fit.
And the story and what they say, and it actually links really nicely to
reputation.
Massively. Because what we see is that is really just step one. The next step, that is going to make them come into market and think. But then for them to actually take action, they need to believe in what you stand for.
The layer on top of that, this is why it's good to chat, and we'll find out more when we get back to London, but I think layer on top, the impact then of that on a brand, organization's reputation. The ability to map, our whole piece about total influence is about mapping influences beyond simply content creators. But that's an important part, I think, of the value of influence for our clients is what, the value of employees' influences inside your organization and outside your organization is huge. But I'd love to. I'd love to, definitely.
Tying them all together, it was the definition of community is a group of people with shared norms. So how can we measure this? Like we can't look at all behaviors and all things.
Well, again, I was chatting to you earlier about it, but yesterday at one of the panel I was on, other speaker was talking about the move from the creator economy to the community economy, which I think is really interesting. Which is there is a value. Imagine the value of those communities. Think about Reddit as a platform and the value detractors generally, Reddit, but also the powerful brand advocates. And that is the value of that community. Putting a value on that would be really interesting as well.
100%. I think the interesting angle of trying to put a dollar to it is if you could actually look at community from perhaps a lens of all their future actions that then speaks to all future sales. And so that's what we're doing when we're looking at influence. We're trying to understand the incremental change in all future sales from your campaign.
What I love about it, and it's only been in less than a decade, this influence has completely taken on a whole new level, hasn't it? But what I love about what you're doing and some of what we're doing in the reputation space is the robustness of it, and it's almost influence growing up as a discipline, which I think is really, really important. Of course, it's taken seriously, and Burson giving roles like mine on our global leadership team, and lots of businesses, Unilever investing hugely in it, clearly shows that it's being taken seriously. But I think for it to continue to evolve, data is super important. So I welcome all of that.
We actually were very much in that process, similar to how you collaborated with Oxford, wanted to have like a third party go deep into this and collaborate with us. We collaborated with King's College London and had them audit the models and
I'll connect you with Chad Latz, who's our global chief sort of technology lead. He's amazing.
Amazing,
He's built
yes.
Decipher, him and his team. And
Oh,
I
very
think,
cool.
I'll connect you with him.
I would love that.
He's done a lot of the work on reputation capital.
I would absolutely love
Yeah,
that.
great. Cool.
The thing that I like, the robustness that you spoke
100%. So important.
to, using existing things that have been tried and tested, like a Markov chain, for instance, as having been used for decades, if not hundreds of years. I should know my history on that. But they know the risks of it.
Yeah.
So like it gives you a barometer of where you're going to land.
Yeah.
So it's not just saying we're 100% sure it's going to be here. It's more like this is the spread of where we think you're going to be.
Yeah, okay.
And also we have to take into account that it is a forecast.
Yeah.
War could happen.
Of course.
Tomorrow.
Yeah, and then, similar to Decipher and our tools, they are Decipher's a prediction.
Yeah.
Based on incredibly robust research. But yeah, it's better than nothing, isn't it?
Yeah. You spoke to the levers.
Yeah,
right?
the levers.
You need to have leading indicators to constantly make better decisions every day.
Definitely.
And the power to having that within 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Not
incredible. Yeah.
Months.
Yeah, totally. I'd be really interested in that.
I would love to go to a rapid fire.
Great.
Questions.
Great. So this is where you throw me a question, yeah?
Yes. Are you ready?
Yeah, great.
I think you'll like this first one as well already. Influencer as a channel or influence as a strategy?
Influence as a strategy, always.
Effectiveness or influence?
Well, that's tough. Effectiveness, yeah.
With, I've got a bit more work to do then.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd take that any day.
I see effectiveness as really important.
Yeah.
And I think you can't have influence without effectiveness.
I was going to say, there's no point. Yeah, influence is pointless.
Yeah.
Takes us back 10 years if we don't have the measurability of it.
The way in which we're looking at influence is seeing effectiveness as a subset of it.
Mm-hmm.
So seeing that you now in the world of influence need to have effective advertising, but you also need to have an effective community.
Yeah, totally.
But I need to work in the storytelling of that.
Yeah, well, we can help you with that.
Yeah. Yes. Brand lift or MMM?
I think brand lift, yeah.
Is that just because I'm sitting next to you?
No, I think brand lift, again, measurability.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Conversion or community?
Well, that's a tough one. I think, I think conversion, again, based on the conversation we've had, community should be building to lead to conversion. Yeah. The two are intrinsically linked.
Would you say that perhaps if you've got community, you've got conversions today and tomorrow?
Yeah, perhaps. Yeah.
Does that change your view on?
Yeah, maybe. I'm going to sit on the fence. I'm going to sit on the fence on that one because I think I'm going to sit on the fence.
Nice. Community strategy or media plan?
Or community strategy. Yeah.
Does one feed into the other?
Yeah,
perhaps?
absolutely, definitely.
Would you always start with the community strategy first and then?
I think the key thing there is getting deep into the community and understanding the community before you even do anything.
I agree with that.
For me is absolutely everything.
You spoke to part of how you navigate risk and reputations, having experts in the field.
Yeah, having influence experts that are, I think I believe that influence is an absolute in a PR agency like ours. Influence is a specialism.
Yes.
My whole hiring approach and the team, amazing team. We have Vicky Chowney, who's part of our global team, who
Heard great things about her.
Yeah, she's amazing, amazing, and they are subject matter experts. And then what we need to then do from that is build capability subject matter experts like healthcare, which is like we said earlier, highly regulated.
Yeah.
We need people that understand the nuance of that. Corporate, consumer, again, sort of experts, and that's the strategy we're taking. We're building. It's a subject matter expertise approach. I don't believe, and this is what we did at Ogilvy again. It was a subject matter expertise. I don't believe that we can just take more traditional PR people and make them influence experts. I think it's, I'm not a deep subject matter expert, but I know how to build things. I want to surround myself with deep subject matter experts to propel our offer.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, definitely.
One last question.
Yeah, go.
Instinct or science?
See, I'm pretty instinct-led, and I think I've been doing this long enough. Maybe if you asked me that in 2 or 3 years' time, I would answer differently. But I've been working in PR agencies for 25 years, and I think my instinct's pretty good. So I would choose instinct.
Matt, this has been a real pleasure.
Thank you. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you so much. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you.